Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem. So we're continuing the Ma'alot of the Chokhmah as the conclusion, right? The closing arguments, if you will, that Shlomo HaMelech gives about the Chokhmah in the end of the first book of Mishlei, right? So Perek Tet, we continue Pasuk Vav. Until this point, Shlomo HaMelech has addressed the upside of the Chokhmah in many different ways. And we even spoke about how to address the Petit and the Chaser Lev. Yes, as two types of approach of Chinuch, depending on the person. Now the Shlomo HaMelech is going to address the two different types of relationships also that the Chokhmah or that the Chokhmah has. Or let's put it this way, from a negative side, and then two relationships the Chokhmah has from the positive side. So Pasuk Vav. Izvu peta'im v'hyu. Okay. Leave alone the petty and live. And drop the petty, right? Drop the simple, and so you can live. Ve'ishru b'derech bina, right? And walk in the path, in the way of the bina. So here the Shlomo HaMelech says something very drastic, but with a very deep chokhmah in it, which we will see. Izvu peta'im v'hyu. He says, don't waste your time with simple-minded people. Says the Gaon, ve'afilu le'ochiach otam, even to rebuke them, right? And to call them off to do the right thing. Don't waste your time, because mingling with simple-minded people makes somebody smart to become simple-minded himself. The influence of somebody that is dumb makes somebody smart dumb. Ve'ishru b'derech bina, and walk in the way of the bina, right? So he says it's the opposite. That you should go on the ways of what of bina. Who has bina? The Talmidei Chachamim. Says, follow the Talmidei Chachamim. Surround yourself with smart and intelligent people, and that will stimulate your intelligence and your desire to be smart. But if you hang around with petim, simple-minded people, then you will lose your chokhmah, to the point that the Gaon says, don't even waste time trying to be muchiach them, to rebuke them. The Ramam says something very interesting. He says, why does Shlomo HaMelech uses the word ve'ishru, to go on the path of the bina? Ulchu, say and go. Why ve'ishru? He says from here, Shlomo HaMelech reveals to us a very big segula. That's what he says. What's the segula? He says, if you want to be surrounded by Torah, and you want to be surrounded by Talmidei Chachamim, and you want to connect to the Torah, Ishru, milashon le'asher, ashrei. Okay? Praise the Chokhmah, praise the Torah. And by praising the Torah, says the Ramam, it's a segula to connect to the Torah and have around you Talmidei Chachamim.
What would be what you're trying to say when you say praise? It could be very.
It's in your approach of how you address the Torah. When you talk about the Torah, how important it is and how beautiful it is. When I'll give you an example. Yes, if what you love is and what's important to you is the beach, and at home and everything, I love the beach, I love this, I love the water, I love scuba diving. So you're pushing, you're forcing your life to be around this. Yes. When you say, "Oh, I have such a great shiur," or "I love the Torah, I learn, it makes me so smart. Look at this chacham, look at this, look at the Chokmat Torah," and that's all you're talking about, right? So it creates an energy that drives you towards that reality. So Pasuk Vav is very, very clear. Do not waste time with simple people because it damages your chokhmah. That's the surmera. And the asetov is make sure to praise and surround yourself with chokhmah and talmidei chachamim. Like we say in the Avot, right? תהיה ראש כזנב לאריות ואל תהיה ראש לשועל. Be the tail of the lions and not the head of the fox, right? להתאבק בעפר של רגליהם. Be the, why are you laughing? Why? No, why?
Dance ball.
טוב, okay. מחילה. Okay. No, I thought you meant it. Okay, so that's this pasuk vav. Pasuk zayin.
Rabbi, can I ask you a quick question on this?
Sure.
So we saw 2 psukim ago in 3 Daled, where in the case of the petty, he's telling us come to the Torah. They're not contradictory to one another, right?
He's talking to the Torah. He's talking to the petty. He says, "What do you do with the petty? The petty, you throw him inside the Torah, right? You actually don't talk. You don't need to talk to him. Just force him into an environment of Torah, and it will do the job. When it comes to the chaser lev, you have to start talking to him. But here we're addressing the petty. We're not addressing the chaser lev.
Right. So in the case of the petty that we saw in Dalet, it said put him in the Torah. Here it's telling you don't even pay attention to him. Like
throw him in the Torah. You don't need to take care of him.
Okay, so let him. That's it.
That's it.
This is like talking about the interaction with him.
Correct.
But aren't we supposed to teach it as well?
That's exactly. But exactly, you're right. That's to the extent that you are a teacher.
We have to reach that level. That's our goal. We have to understand our
once you're there
to teach it.
Once you're there, because if you're not there, you're subject to his influence. That's the fear, and it's like that. When you're surrounded with lazy people, they make you lazy.
On your way up, stay away.
Correct. So Pasuk Vav, a recap for Stanley 1 second. He says about the simple piece. He says, don't waste time and don't surround yourself with simple-minded people because it jeopardizes your chokhmah and your ability to grow on one end, and on the other, praise and surround yourself with Talmidei Chachamim so that you can empower yourself and grow in chokhmah and in Torah. To the point that the Gaon says, and don't even waste time trying to rebuke the simple mind, right? Because by trying to fix him, you might fall yourself. That's Pasuk Vav. Pasuk Zayin. יוסר לץ לוקח לו קלון. יוסר מלשון ייסורים, מלשון מוסר. If you give musar to the let's, right, to the fool, לוקח לו קלון, you will take blemish, a shame. That's the reward for giving musar to the let's. ומוכיח לרשע, and if you give tochacha, you give rebuke to the rasha, mumo, you will get hurt. So says the Gaon.
Can you repeat that? I was confused by the translation.
No, listen to what I'm saying. Yoser, whoever gives musar, okay, to the fool, okay, lokeach lo kalon, he takes on him shame. The guy that gave the musar, the guy, okay, that tried to discipline the fool, and whoever rebukes the rasha, ends up getting hurt. Mochiach le rasha mumo, he gets right. He gets physically hurt. So he says the ground like this. There's two types of reshaim, two types of reshut. One resha, one evil is bedibur, somebody that always speaks bad, always negative, hurtful, but doesn't act. And then you have the rasha that actually acts. He doesn't bark, but he bites. Yeah, you have the one that barks but doesn't bite, the one that bites and doesn't need to bark. It says Shlomo HaMelech are referring to those two types of reshaim as the let's, the fool, as the one that applies evil through his mouth, that is evil through the mouth, and the rasha, right? The evil is the one that is evil in his action. It says the fool always tries, okay, to bring down people, to talk bad, to shame them, to break their confidence. Why? Because the fool doesn't take anything seriously. Okay? Why doesn't he take anything seriously? Because the fool doesn't think he is serious of himself in the first place. So because he feels he's empty, so might as well make a good joke about life. And if you make a joke about life, so anyone that is actually serious, you have to make a joke out of him. And you have to break their confidence so that they also can look at the life the way you look at it, so that you can feel secure that you're not alone. And there's not people that are serious versus you that's a fool. That's the nature of the fool. So when you see people that have that tendency to always talk down about people, yes, it shows you what nature they have. So he says that you have to be very careful, because that person, if you try to discipline him or her, he's going to end up by shaming you. Meaning you're turning yourself into a target to the fool. And by trying to discipline the fool, because the fool himself doesn't have self-respect, you're not disciplining anybody. You can discipline someone that have respect about himself but is all over the place. But a fool that doesn't respect himself and therefore cannot respect others, and he has to make sure to break others, By trying to discipline him, you're not doing anything, because there's no material, there's no essence to shape and to carve. Therefore, what happens? You end up becoming a target to the guy, and he's going to make sure to shame you. And he's going to go after your weak spots, says the Gaon, to make sure to break you. That is the danger of the letz. And if you rebuke the Rasha, which represents the person that is evil physically, Mumo is going to come at you physically. He will, the Rasha, somebody that can act evil, and that doesn't mean to give a punch to someone. כל המרים ידו על חברו, נקרא רשע. Whoever lifts his arm, he didn't hit. He goes like this, נקרא רשע. So the rasha, the definition of the rasha, is somebody that takes action. It doesn't matter how far he goes. It's enough that a person wants to take action to hurt someone else. He has the title of a rasha. So if you're trying to rebuke the rasha and tell the rasha what he's doing wrong, once again, the rasha will take you as a target and make sure to hurt you. So says Shlomo HaMelech, why waste your time? You're only going to get hurt from it. And he says something crazy. He says, look, the Gaon is medayek. Look, Shlomo HaMelech, what he says? He says, if you give musar, right, to the letz, and rebuke to the rasha. He says, why do you say musar to the letz? He says the evil that speaks bad, right? If he's only speaking and not acting, it's because he doesn't have the courage to act. So he talks. He talks a lot. But if you just rebuke him, what you did is wrong, right? He doesn't care. The letz doesn't care. If you start trying to discipline him, that's when the letz, comes back at you. The rasha, forget about disciplining. Even if you rebuke him, he comes at you. So, you understand? Rebuke is less of an effort than the discipline, than musar. Tochacha is a statement. Musar is an involvement. So don't make if you make a statement to the letz, it's okay. But if you try to discipline the letz, that's when he comes at you. The rasha, even if you rebuke him, he comes at you.
The let's is not as bad as the rasha.
No, the rasha is very big. The rasha has the conviction and the chutzpah to act evil, to act evil. So the rasha, you don't even want to talk to him. You don't even want to get close to him. The fool, right? We're telling you, don't try to discipline the fool. If you rebuke, you can rebuke, but discipline, don't discipline.
And sorry, can you define the difference between rebuke and discipline so I make sure I understand that distinction?
Tochacha, it's a dibur. You make a statement. Discipline is explaining and giving. It's getting involved with the person and explaining him how to work on his midot and how to fix his midot, etc. A rebuke is, like what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
You're bad.
Musar.
Musar is not rebuke. Musar is discipline.
Musar is discipline.
Tochacha is rebuke.
And a rasha is defined as anybody that attempts to hurt somebody.
Yes, that acts upon it.
Acts upon it.
Doesn't matter how much of it. When you see people that actually are busy trying to hurt in one way or another, these are very dangerous people. You need to make sure that you don't cross path with the rasha. Now, to this point, we may think that what? It's okay to give tochacha to the let's, right? We said there's no issues. Right? Until now, we're clear? Okay.
Sorry, Rabbi,
Yeah.
before you mentioned that there was two types of Rashayim, one who speaks bad and hurtful, but he doesn't act on it. Is that referring back to the let's, or that's
the let's. That's the let's.
Okay, so he
That's
has
the
a
let's.
form. He has a form of evil in him. It's just categorized as a okay.
Correct. They're both Reshaim. They're both Ra, right? They're both Reshaim. It's just that one acts and the other one speaks. So, based on what Shlomo HaMelech just tells us right now, right? Don't speak a word, like don't engage with the Rasha, and don't try to discipline the fool. But you can, yes.
I thought we're supposed to stay far away from the let's. Right? When we learned David HaMelech says in Tehillim, "U'b'mashav letzim lo yashav." Don't sit with them.
That's next pasuk. That's next pasuk. That's next pasuk. Yes. There's next pasuk. It's very good. We're going to get to that. But right. So this pasuk tells us don't cross paths with the person that acts evil, and don't try to discipline the fool. Pasuk chet. And if you think it's okay to be mochiach, to rebuke the let's, al tochach let's. Do not give tochacha, do not rebuke the fool. Why? Pen is na'echa, because he might hate you. And what happens if he hates you? Then you go back to what we said earlier, right? You become his target, and he's going to start shaming you and breaking you socially. Ochach lechacham v'yehaveka. Instead, give tochacha, go give the rebuke to the chacham, and he will love you. So, Shlomo HaMelech says, don't even try to rebuke the let's. So now the let's and the rasha are at the same level. Do not interact, do not try to rebuke, do not try to discipline, not the fool and not the rasha. Why? Because at the end, all you can get from both of them is damages. One, it can damage you physically, okay? The other one will damage you socially and emotionally.
What's the musar in Shlomo HaMelech taking us in a roundabout way to get to the place where you stay far away from the let's and the rasha? He could have just said that in one pasuk.
Very good, very good. We're going to see that because the let's essentially is not at the same level as the rasha in his actions. So you might see the let's as someone that's less harmful. Okay. So first he compares the let's to the rasha, and then he comes and tells you, but the let's also, if you rebuke him, right? You at that point you trigger sin'ah. You trigger sin'ah. So he's coming to separate the two, so you understand the two levels, right? Because correct. Because if you rebuke normally the let's, right, once or twice, he's not going to care. But if you rebuke the Rasha will act right away. So come Shlomo HaMelech, and if you try to discipline the let's, it backfires on you. So if you would have said only rebuke, right? By the let's, there's two flaws in it. Number one, because the rebuke, a rebuke might not lead to sin'ah right away. And number two, you might think, okay, that's rebuke, because I'm just throwing a statement. But let me work with him and discipline him and give him musa, that's going to work. Right? So, you understand?
Are we going to get
Lozo avzo. Right?
Are we going to get to a point where Shlomo HaMelech teaches us that the let's is probably more dangerous for us than the Rasha?
No. That's he puts for now. No. 1 second. So he comes and he adds on that nekuda, like we said, right? That don't even rebuke the fool, because again, by rebuking the fool, it might lead to hate, and we're going to see how it leads to hate. And if he hates you, you become his target, and you become his target, he's going to come and take you down. And he says the opposite, and that's what referring to what you were saying, Stanley. The opposite, go and give to Chacham, and if you want to rebuke someone, go rebuke the Chacham. He says the Chacham, who's the Chacham? The Baal Torah, somebody that learns Torah. And he's exactly the opposite of the fool. We say that in the Avot, Shnaim sheyoshvim ve'en benehem Torah, divrei Torah. If you have two people that sit together and they don't talk divrei Torah, harei ze moshav letzim. It's considered moshav letzim, the gathering of fools. So what makes you not a fool if you learn Torah, right? So, and that's the Chacham. And he says Shlomo HaMelech like this. You might think because he's a Talmid Chacham, if he did something wrong, he knows he did something wrong, and therefore there's no reason to rebuke. Yeah. It says, Af al pi chen tochiach. You should rebuke him. Why? Because the tzaddikim, the chachamim, they love the growth and the journey to perfection. It's like a woman, he gives an example. It's like a woman that is about to put makeup on her face. Yes, and she takes a mirror. The more magnifying the mirror is, and she can see the dark dots or the impurity of the skin, and she can clean her face, and the more she's happy because now she can put beautiful makeup and she can look more beautiful, right? So the more the mirror exposes the imperfection of the skin, and the better the more happy the woman is with the mirror, right? The Talmid Chacham is the same thing. He wants people that love him to be like a magnifying mirror that address the flaws. Because by addressing the flaws, he can fix the flaws. And if he fix the flaws, he's happy because now he's a better Eved Hashem. And that's what it means, ve'ehaveka. The Talmid Chacham, when you rebuke him, he loves you more because he knows you really care for him. And when you say something to help him get better, you're testifying, it's a testimony of love, of kavod, right? And for that, he loves you.
A question that could be stupid. This applies for Talmid Chacham, like men, or also women that are not obliged maybe to study Torah, Limud Torah, or is the job of the men husband to.
I didn't understand the question, Mechila.
Andy,
This
stay
is-
away from any rebuke of women. It's much safer.
Yes, that's why. But how do you?
I
You
didn't
got it
understand the
right.
question.
Yes.
I didn't understand the question. Again.
This is you cannot when you rebuke, you have to take, like, women are not the style that they like to go under midot and work on them. Usually, it's more the men that
Nachon.
likes to be logical. So this in this pasuk, it's applying to both, or it's more to the Talmid
No, to
Chacham,
Talmidei Chachamim, to Talmidei Chachamim, to Baalei Chochma, to Baalei Chochma, to Baalei Chochma. Yeah? So if you pay attention now, we have three statements about the Resha. We have, if you give Musar to the Letz, you're going to be shamed. That's number one. If you rebuke the Rasha, you're going to get physically hurt. And if you rebuke the Letz, he will hate you and take you down. Right? So the two types of Rishut, which is Dibur and Maaseh, yield three negative outcomes: shame, physical harm, and hate. Okay? Now just put that aside, because now next pasuk, ten lechacham veyechkam od, give to the chacham, instruct the chacham, and he will grow wiser, we become a bigger chacham. Hoda letzaddik, and convey to the tzaddik, bring attention to the tzaddik, veyosef lekach, and he will gain more knowledge. So says the Gaon, the same way we've addressed the two types of Rasha, meaning you have Rishut, right? You have evil of the mouth and you have evil of the action. Okay? On the flip side also, in the Tzaddik, by the Chokhmah, you also have the Tzaddik, okay? You have, and the Chacham, you have the Tzaddik in his mouth and the Tzaddik in his action. And in that case, he says the following: Chacham is referring to the mouth, to the Dibur Torah, the Chokhmat Torah. And Tzaddik is referred to the actions. So if the comparison is why we're comparing the Letz to the Chacham and the Rasha to the Tzaddik.
Rob, we didn't address the petty, like the person in the middle.
The petty is not a Rasha.
No, I know that.
So it has nothing to do. Then what's
no? But he's not a Rasha and he's not a tzaddik. So where does he fall?
He's not. Here is we did, first of all, we did address the petty in last shiur. Okay, and in the beginning of the shiur, that's the fool. That's the first pasuk.
The petty is considered the fool.
The petty is the fool. Yes. So in last shiur, pasuk dalet and pasuk vav were addressed it, but they're not considered rasha. They're not rashaim.
So everyone falls into one of these four categories, basically.
What do you mean four categories?
You have the letz, the rasha, the chacham, and the tzaddik.
Yeah, no, and then you have the petty, but the comparison of the two, the polar opposites, you have or rasha, rishut, or bad and good. Then the petty is in the one in the middle that
right.
It's not here, not there.
Right. I was just asking, how do we think about rebuking that person?
You don't rebuke. That last, you were here, sure? Okay. So in last year, that's the question. So he started by that. The petty, you throw him in the environment of Torah, and he's gonna get fixed. You don't need to rebuke. You don't need to get involved. And the opposite, right? That's what we started with the fool. Don't waste your time, right? To try to fix him, because if you try to fix the fool, right, you're going to become a fool yourself. So back to Pasuk Tet. So the Rasha, right, compared to the Tzaddik, the Letz to the Chacham. And by the Letz, we spoke about two things, right? By the Letz, we spoke about the shame in Pasuk Zayin, and we spoke about hate in Pasuk Chet, right? That if you give Musa, if you try to discipline the fool, yes, we're good. Stanley, the petty is the simple, not the fool. The fool is the less.
Right. I was asking about like the Benoni, the guy in the middle. That's what I was asking.
No, because you just realized that you were referring to the petty as fool. The petty is not a fool.
No, I was
the simple mind.
He is the simple-minded. The guy.
Okay,
not,
yes.
That's why I said, do you have to fall into one of those four categories? I wanted to know about the guy in the middle.
The guy in the middle, don't waste time with him. Just take him, throw him in an environment of Torah, and it will do the job. That's what Shlomo HaMelech tells us. But okay, so by the let, Shlomo HaMelech addresses two issues, right? That if you discipline him, he will shame you, and if you rebuke him, he will hate you. So he says, the flip side of that, we find it by the Chacham. The Chacham, if you rebuke him, he loves you. That's what we saw at the end of Pasuk Chet. Ocheach lechacham yehaveka. Ten lachacham veyachkam od. Give to the Chacham, and we get even smarter. So the rebuke is bedibur, and 10 is the action, right? The Chacham, he wants musar, and he wants rebuke. Somebody that has chokhmah, okay, wants to be taught discipline, and he wants to be rebuked if it's needed.
He prefers a rebuke than someone that says good things about him. No?
Absolutely. That's right. That's by the Chacham. And the tzaddik that's compared to the Rasha. Who's a tzaddik? So tzaddik is someone that has good righteous actions. That does masim tovim. And to him, to the tzaddik, he says hodaya la tzaddik v'yosef lekach. Hoda milashon hodaa, right? To teach, to convey, and that's bedivur. He says if it's enough that you speak to the tzaddik, right? V'yosef lekach, and he will do more mitzvot. The tzaddik is a practical man that understands that in order to change, automatically he focuses on more actions, more good deeds. And he says here, Shlomo HaMelech has revealed to us the secret of what the Torah speaks about in Bereshit, Etz Hadat Tov Vara. He says those traits, what do we see? That the Rasha becomes bigger Rasha, the fool becomes a bigger fool and hater, the Chacham becomes a bigger Chacham, and the Tzaddik becomes a bigger Tzaddik, right? So depending on how you poke them, it brings out, right, their essence. It brings out their avodah. He says this is etzadat tov vara. When we ate from the tree, when Adam and Chava ate from the tree of knowledge, it installed in us an instinct that will push out and trigger more of the essence we experience and we're trying to be. It's very deep what he's saying here. Again, because Etz HaDa'at installed in us, right, the power of tzmicha, the growth power, okay? Just like a tree grows and brings out fruit, we have within us this instinct that brings out and have the need, the essence, okay, to develop more who we are inside. So if you are a rasha, right, it will bring out the rishut. If you're a tzaddik, you will bring out the tzidkut. If you're the chacham, it brings out the chokhmah, etc. So this is why it is so important what Shlomo HaMelech said in the beginning. Make sure not to waste your time with the simple mind, right? And be surrounded by people that have chokhmah, because the more you're surrounded by positive people and people that are intellectual and smart and proactive and tzaddikim, by default, you trigger that essence within you, right, of the Etz HaDa'at that brings out the tov. And if you're surrounded with the ra, then you trigger within you this koach from Etz HaDa'at that's within you to bring out the ra. So essentially, it's a tendency, it's a strength that works against you, even if you try to fight it. So why put yourself in a position where you're already behind the apple? Yes.
So is this person just a lost cause?
No, he's not a lost cause.
How did we work on him? Who
Seder,
worked?
that's a different story. Right now we're in the chokhmah. We're not in the musar, and we're not right. We're in the chokhmah. Right? What do you have to do? He has to change his path and go with chachamim and apply the avodat chokhmah. But essentially, we found many times where yes, yeah, some people are lost causes. We've seen it throughout those chapters. In this case, he's not saying that he's a lost cause, but he's saying it just makes his life much more difficult. That's the mitziut. That's the mitziut. And he says, so we found 3 dargot, right, by Resha, 2 by the Letz and 1 by the Rasha, and we found 3 dargot, 3 levels by the tzaddik, 2 by the chacham and 1 by the tzaddik. Yes, good. By the Rasha again, by the Rishut we found by the Letz shame, kalon, and sin'ah and hate. And by the Rasha, we find mum, right? Physical, hurt. And by the tzaddik, we found 3. By the chacham, we found ahava. He loves the rebuke, right? Yechkam od, right? He grows in his chokhmah. And by the tzaddik, and by the tzaddik, Yosef lekach. He adds on more actions. Yes, 3 against 3. He says, nothing to do with 3, it's 3 parallel to 3. He says, it is the 3 dargot that we have by the tzaddik, which is kasher, tahor, and mutar. Kasher, tahor, mutar. Those are the 3 dimensions of aseh, of good. And against it, by the resha, we have pasul, tameh, and asur. Yes.
What was the first one? Tameh pasul.
Tameh. Pasul, tameh, asur. Kasher, mutar. Tahor, mutar. Now, says the Gaon, when you eat kasher, and you trigger the tzidkut. When you care to be tahor, to be pure, you trigger the tzidkut. When you do things that are mutar, you trigger the tzidkut. So you're injecting life in the etz hada'at within you, right? That instinctively pushes the good that's in you. On the flip side, if you're pasul, if you eat something that's you're not allowed to, then you bring out the ra of the etz hada'at tovara. If you're tameh, impure, the same thing. If it's asur, you do something that's asur, the same thing. So for that reason, the Torah gave you these parameters, okay, in order to stimulate within you the good and protect you from the instinct of the bad. So that you don't have to fight yourself. And instead of having to fight yourself, you have a power motivating you and elevating you and pushing you forward.
Also, the key to get out of a bad feeling.
Nachon. That can answers what Brian asked. Yes, absolutely.
So it's not a restriction, it's a power they give.
Correct. It's a power.
It's amazing because as young children, we grow up thinking about the mitzvot as restrictions, right? They're fences, right? We hear fences, they're gezerot, they're borders. It's the exact opposite, actually. When you really think about what we're saying now, it's the exact opposite. It actually empowers you to be more free.
That's right.
And not doing it actually makes you a prisoner.
That's right. We're going to stop here because Yud and Yud Aleph and Yud Bet already are together on another subject. It's the Chokhmah, yeah. But now we're back to the weaving of Chokhmah and Yira.
How long did Shlomo Melech take to write Mishlei? Do we know?
It's a good question. We know that he fasted for 40 days before he started writing.
40 half day or 40 full?
No, 40 full days. 40 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Makes Shovavim look a little light.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's no big deal, Rav.
What? Shovavim? No, the 40 days. No, it depends. No. Elul, you fast 40 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul all the way to Yom Kippur. But you have breaks in the middle. You have Rosh Hashanah. Yeah.
Wow. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Rab.
באהבה, בשורות טובות בעזרת השם.